Imagine a bustling city alive with the energy of millions. People go about their day unaware of the impending doom. Then, in a horrifying instant, a blinding flash engulfs the sky. A massive fireball, hotter than the surface of the sun, explodes into existence. Buildings within a vast radius are vaporized, leaving nothing but shadows etched into the ground. The air itself ignites, unleashing a wave of unbearable heat. This is the terrifying reality of a nuclear detonation. The initial blast, lasting mere fractions of a second, unleashes an unimaginable amount of energy. Everything within the immediate vicinity of the explosion is obliterated. Those unfortunate enough to be looking directly at the blast are permanently blinded. The very fabric of the city is torn apart, leaving behind a crater of unimaginable size. This is not science fiction. It is a chilling possibility that hangs over humanity. The destructive power of nuclear weapons is unlike anything else on Earth. The bombs detonated over Hiroshima and Nagasaki in 1945, while horrifying, pale in comparison to the yield of modern thermonuclear devices. The potential for destruction is truly staggering. We must never forget the lessons of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The images of those devastated cities serve as stark reminders of the human cost of nuclear war. The suffering endured by the survivors, both physical and psychological, should forever haunt our collective conscience. The initial blast is only the beginning of the nightmare. As the fireball expands, it violently pushes the surrounding air outward, creating a shockwave of unimaginable force. Traveling faster than the speed of sound, the shockwave pulverizes everything in its path. Buildings crumble, bridges collapse, and trees are uprooted like weeds. The shockwave races outward from the epicenter, leaving a trail of devastation in its wake. Windows shatter for miles, sending shards of glass flying like deadly projectiles. Cars are tossed aside like toys, their metal frames twisted and mangled. The air pressure changes dramatically, causing internal injuries and bursting eardrums. Those seeking shelter underground are not immune to the shockwave's wrath. Tunnels collapse, subway systems are crushed, and underground bunkers are breached. The ground itself heaves and buckles as if shaken by a giant's hand. The very foundations of the city are shattered. The destructive power of the shockwave is a testament to the sheer force unleashed by a nuclear detonation. It is a force that knows no mercy, indiscriminately leveling everything in its path. No amount of preparation can fully protect a city from its wrath. As the shockwave dissipates, a new horror emerges from the ash's fallout. A massive cloud of radioactive debris, shaped like a giant mushroom, rises from the devastated city. This ominous cloud, a symbol of our capacity for destruction, carries deadly radioactive particles high into the atmosphere. Carried by the wind, these radioactive particles, known as fallout, spread far and wide. They contaminate the air, water, and soil, poisoning the environment for years to come. Invisible and insidious, fallout poses a silent but deadly threat to all living things. Days, even weeks after the initial blast, a gruesome rain begins to fall. Blackened by soot and ash, this rain carries radioactive particles back to the earth. It contaminates crops, poisons water sources, and exposes anyone caught in the open to dangerous levels of radiation. The long-term effects of fallout are perhaps the most insidious consequence of a nuclear detonation. Exposure to radiation can lead to cancer, birth defects, and a host of other health problems. The invisible poison released by the bomb continues to claim victims long after the initial blast. In the aftermath of a nuclear explosion, the once thriving city is reduced to a smoldering wasteland. Buildings are reduced to rubble, streets are impassable, and fires rage uncontrolled. The air is thick with smoke, dust, and the stench of death. It is a scene of unimaginable devastation. Emergency services, overwhelmed by the scale of the disaster, struggle to respond. Hospitals, if they still stand, are overflowing with the injured. Doctors and nurses, many of them injured themselves, work tirelessly to save lives, but they are fighting a losing battle. Survivors, many of them suffering from burns, radiation sickness, and psychological trauma, emerge from the rubble. They are faced with the daunting task of rebuilding their lives in a world forever changed. The physical and emotional scars of the attack run deep. The destruction of infrastructure cripples the city's ability to recover. Power grids are down, communication networks are severed, and transportation systems are destroyed. The city is cut off from the outside world, isolated in its suffering. Section 5. The Unseen Killer. While the immediate effects of a nuclear explosion are horrifyingly apparent, the long-term consequences are equally devastating. Radiation, the invisible killer released by the bomb, continues to cast a long shadow over the devastated city and its people. Exposure to radiation can lead to a range of health problems, including cancer, leukemia, birth defects, and immune system disorders. The risk of developing these conditions increases with the level and duration of radiation exposure. Children are particularly vulnerable to the harmful effects of radiation. The psychological toll of a nuclear attack is immeasurable. Survivors may experience post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety, depression, and survivor's guilt. The trauma of the event can have a lasting impact on their mental and emotional well-being. The long-term consequences of a nuclear explosion extend far beyond the immediate victims. The environmental damage, the economic fallout, and the social upheaval can be felt for generations. Section 6. A global threat. The threat of nuclear war is not confined to a single city or region. It is a global problem that affects us all. The detonation of a nuclear weapon anywhere in the world would have catastrophic consequences for humanity and the planet. The use of nuclear weapons would unleash a chain reaction of devastating consequences. The initial blast, shockwave, and fallout would cause widespread death and destruction. The ensuing nuclear winter, caused by the massive amount of soot and debris injected into the atmosphere, would disrupt global climate patterns, leading to crop failures and famine. The threat of nuclear terrorism is another grave concern. The acquisition of nuclear weapons or materials by terrorist groups poses a serious threat to global security. The consequences of a nuclear terrorist attack would be unimaginable. The proliferation of nuclear weapons is a dangerous trend that increases the risk of nuclear conflict. The more countries that possess nuclear weapons, the greater the likelihood that they will be used, whether intentionally or accidentally. Section 7. Choosing our future. The spectre of nuclear annihilation has loomed over humanity for decades. The destructive power of these weapons is undeniable, and the consequences of their use would be catastrophic. We have a choice to make. Continue down the path of fear and mistrust, or choose a future free from the threat of nuclear war. The elimination of nuclear weapons is the only way to guarantee that they will never be used again. This will require a concerted effort from all nations working together to create a safer and more secure world. We must invest in diplomacy, dialogue, and conflict resolution. We must address the root causes of conflict, such as poverty, inequality, and injustice. We must build trust and understanding between nations. The future of humanity depends on our ability to overcome the challenges posed by nuclear weapons. We must choose a path of peace, cooperation, and disarmament. Section 8. Join the fight for a nuclear-free world. The fight to eliminate nuclear weapons is a fight for our future, for the future of our children, and for the future of our planet. It is a fight that requires the participation of all people, regardless of nationality, religion, or political beliefs. There are many ways to get involved in the movement for nuclear disarmament. You can educate yourself and others about the dangers of nuclear weapons. You can support organizations working to promote peace and disarmament. You can contact your elected officials and urge them to support policies that reduce the nuclear threat. Visit notonukes.org to learn more about the issue of nuclear weapons and how you can make a difference. Together we can create a world free from the threat of nuclear war. The time for action is now. Our future depends on it.